terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Good afternoon. Welcome into the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show here on a happy Hump Day Wednesday, February the 8th, 3:34 in the p.m. You're here at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. I'm Tim Jones. We got Chris Arps here and Katie Fitzpatrick. Chris, what more needs to be said about the incoherent psychobabble that was last night's State of the Union address?
Well, I have to tell you, and I have to admit that I feel very refreshed and energized today because I snoozed through it, to be honest with you.
You missed nothing.
I did. I had it on, but I was like dozing at the same time. That has to have set a record for the longest State of the Union speech ever. Am I exaggerating to say it was an hour and a half long?
No, I think you're close, but I think
close.
Bill Clinton set the record back in the day for the longest. It was bizarre, Chris.
It was very long.
I've never gotten angry at a State of the Union speech. I got angry last night because of the abject lying. And obviously I wasn't alone. Congressmen and women, it turned into a raucous caucus last night, basically a scene out of the United Kingdom's Parliament, which I kind of enjoy Parliament. I think it's kind of fun. They let the leaders know what they think of them right then and there. But, I know there was not as much decorum as necessary. But when the leader sets the tone, do you blame everybody for following?
You know, I find it very interesting, as I said yesterday with our guest, that the White House was leaking out that the president was going to be conciliatory. He was going to tack to the middle. He wasn't going to say anything about MAGA or wasn't going to signal out or point out any single Republican. And you saw him dance around that when he said an outright lie that Republicans were going to cut Social Security and Medicare. And they all hooted out. And he was like, well, I'll show you the plan. Not all of you, but some of you. You know, he kind of tipped that line. But that surprised me, and I'm wondering, did the president go off script, or was that a fake Lucy holding the football move that the White House put out prior to the speech?
He went off script several times last night, and every single time he did, it was a disaster. It was a disaster.
Every time he went off script, it was a disaster.
He either attacked somebody, and I don't even necessarily think he meant to attack people, but that's what happens when you're an old geriatric dementia patient. He was either attacking somebody, or he would wander. And people would be like, okay, we'll just clap to make you look at the teleprompter again. Or he would make up a word, like there were a couple new words made up last night.
I like that they're like, okay, come on, Biden.
Yeah,
follow the teleprompter.
Back to the teleprompter.
Get the teleprompter.
Katie, did you or Tony, or do you know if any of the other shows, because I know you get here a lot earlier, and I was running around today at a bunch of meetings. Did anybody talk about the outburst that Joe Biden made about President Xi? That was one of the weirdest sections of the speech. He started yelling about President Xi and whether any world leader would want to change or change places with him. I didn't know what he was talking about.
You know what, and I think I may have a clue of what he may be talking about, and I read it somewhere that when the former president of Japan, who was assassinated last year, he had a meeting with the president of China, and he claimed in a book that the president of China, if he lived in the United States, was born and raised in the United States, he would be either a Democrat or a Republican. And I think the president somehow heard those comments and twisted into the nonsense, mumble-jumble word salad that came out last night.
Man, Chris, you've got a Biden decoder ring on, because that's pretty good, because you're the first person I've heard who's made sense. It was this... So Biden wildly fluctuated between speed reading to the point where he would mumble and jumble the words together. he would have sections where he'd slow way down. He would jump from subject to subject, and every once in a while, he would rant and rave and wag his finger at everybody. It was a bizarre performance at the very least.
Yeah, and it's almost what you almost would expect from a person of his age and of his mental decline. I want to talk a second about decorum. And Katie, I heard you and Tony talking about that in your show. And Tim, you touched on it just a bit as well. I loved Prime Minister's questions too. I love that Tuesday morning when they're hooting and hollering, shouting and everything. And, the State of the Union is supposed to be this place where there is decorum and, you listen to the president politely. And you could maybe say a little groans if you don't agree, but it's not anything loud. And I think what we've seen the last few presidents and State of the Unions where that decorum has kind of been broken, kind of on both sides, really. But it started, when Tony mentioned it with when Biden was president, and the guy stand up and said, "You lie." Maybe, things are changing, and we're a very divided country right now, and there's a lot of norms that have been here forever that have changed and are accepted. Look, we changed the definition of marriage, so why can't people that are in Congress, senators and congressmen, why can't they yell out if they don't agree, if they feel that, the president is just outright lying here and our facial expressions aren't enough. We need to be vocal here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think there's just got to be some. I do like the applause, and I'm okay with the boos too. I agree with you, Chris. There is a moment where you're like, you are flat out telling a lie, and I am so angry I have to say something. I agree with that.
Maybe 25 years ago, no, but in 2023, it's like.
And I guess that's my point whenever I was talking to Tony about it. This is where we are now. Politicians want to do whatever it takes to make their statement, to get the headline. At least that's how I see it. And whether it's genuinely they're upset or they're just trying to be the big thing that happened at the State of the Union. There was once upon a time, you said it yesterday, Chris, you used to get goosebumps whenever you watched the State of the Union.
I still did a little bit last night, even though I knew what I was expecting. But now pissed off later.
But now it feels like maybe you both disagree with this or agree, but now it feels like whenever I see Congress together or when I see a cluster of politicians together, I hold my breath because it's a reality TV show. And more than anything.
That's why I love it.
I love it.
I would say Biden got what he deserved. If he had given, Chris, to your point, if he had given a proper State of the Union speech, I would have expected a proper State of the Union address. Applause, maybe a groan or two. But I felt that he did not give a proper State of the Union speech. That was a massive campaign speech where he essentially praised everything he did, lied about most of it, attacked Republicans, and then just kind of wandered aimlessly around and spun a bunch of yarns.
And I think it's also fair to blame the media for the Republicans' response to the president's lies during the State of the Union, because they know there's not going to be a fact checker to call the president on all his lies after his speech. So if they don't make a fuss about this, that's the only way the public is really going to understand that maybe the president is not telling the truth, because the media is dead, unfortunately, and that's why great stations like News Talk STL are here to give you the truth. The Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Absolutely, and that's why, and we have fantastic guests to help us analyze and give us great insight on this as well, Chris. And we're working on bringing in Hogan Gidley, Vice Chair at the Center for Election Integrity and former National Press Secretary for the Trump campaign. And I think we've got him on the line right now.
Fantastic.
Hogan, thanks for joining Chris and Katie and I today. It's been a long time, my friend. Welcome back to News Talk STL.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the time.
No problem.
So, Hogan, has the Washington Post given Joe Biden's State of the Union 12 Pinocchios yet? Because that's what it deserved last night, didn't it?
I tell you, if the fact checkers were really actually fact checkers, I don't think they'd be able to sleep or actually put out a story until they finish doing all the work required after that speech for the next 3 months solid. It was so bad top to bottom, so many mistruths, half-truths, outright lies. And to watch him try and claim credit for the economy when it was the Democrats that shut down the country, they opened it back up, and somehow that's creating jobs, not to mention the fact I think we're somewhere around 2.6, 2.9 million fewer jobs in this country than there were before the pandemic. So, I think the track record's pretty clear here, but leave it to Joe Biden to try and take credit for something he didn't do. And of course, the media just to parrot whatever he says. I mean, he's got a press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, but everybody in the mainstream media is pretty much the deputy press secretary. They just handle everything that she doesn't handle, and they parrot all of the lies and don't fact check him. So it was a really, really bad speech, not just from its tone, the yelling and the anger that he exhibits all too often, but the divisiveness, the lies that we talked about before, and it just didn't land. I think it didn't land, and it didn't deliver what I think he wanted to deliver. Not even really talking about China all that much, kind of glossing over the border, saying you want to end the fentanyl crisis, but you leave the border wide open so the cartels can operate and bring the fentanyl in. Not to mention that most of it comes from China. The whole thing is a joke, and I hope the American people saw through it.
Hey, Hogan, this is Chris Arps, and you were a former member of the Trump administration, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Hey, it's just me, Tim, and Katie here. There were all kind of Chinese balloons that floated across the United States while Trump was president, right?
Lots, absolutely. And that's where they got the inspiration from the movie Up, where they put all the balloons on the house. Yeah, no, look, what's so fascinating to me about that is if there were all of these balloons, how does the Biden administration know about it? You didn't tell Trump, but you told Biden to give him political cover, go off the record, on background, kind of drip those things out. And if you didn't tell Donald Trump, why not? Because you thought he wouldn't act the way you would act? He was the duly elected president of the United States. He kept China at bay. He kept Russia at bay. Joe Biden has destroyed every single foreign policy issue he's touched, but yet somehow you're trying to protect the country from Donald Trump. The whole thing just is weird on its face. Also, you didn't want to shoot the thing down over Alaska or over the Aleutian Islands. You wanted to let it go across the entire continental United States. But I got to tell you, Chris, leave it to my buddies down in South Carolina to take care of it.
Yeah, there you go.
To the South, they took care of it.
There you go.
Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, they
We
did.
got it.
You know, Hogan, to drill down on a great question that Chris asked, Hogan, one of two things has to be true either, right? Either the story about all these mythical, I think mythical Trump balloons, it was entirely fabricated and manufactured to cover up for Joe Biden's complete incompetence on any matter involving foreign relations, no matter how big, how small, or in between it might be, as Bob Gates said. Or, Hogan, it shows how real the deep state is and how they're running our country and not our elected officials. It has to be one or the other, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I was trying to get at here, because people always kind of on the left mock, and no, there's no deep state. We find out, of course, that the three-letter agencies are weaponized against parents who just care about their child's education. We find out what Twitter was doing in cahoots with the Democrats and other things. Now we find out about this balloon situation, too, just to name a few. I'm telling you, I think it's a deep state move. I think if there were some of these things moving across, and you've heard now from past secretaries of defense, past secretaries of state in the Trump administration said, no, never happened. If it did, then that just shows a cabal to try within the federal government that tries to undermine a president of the United States, undermine the will of the people. That's the kind of thing that really begins to erode the confidence people have, which is already wearing pretty thin, in your government agencies. It's a real problem, and I'm glad you pointed it out.
Hogan, you are also vice chair at the Center for Election Integrity, the America First Policy Institute. There is an effort in Missouri currently to try to get on the ballot approval voting, which used to be called ranked choice voting. Talk about how horrific this scheme is for our democracy.
Yeah, look, this is one of the most egregious voting systems on the planet. A story came out today where the people of Alaska who voted for this are now having some serious buyer's remorse, and a majority of people in that state don't want anything to do with ranked choice voting anymore. They only had it for like a cycle or two, in large measure because it's cumbersome, it's confusing, and the most horrific part of the whole process is the person who gets the most votes may not be declared the winner because they go into the second and third round of balloting. You don't get to re-vote, of course. They just count, the ones you rank second, third, fourth, fifth, depending on, how many people are on the ballot. But study after study shows it actually increases negative ads. It increases the wait time for the elections to be decided. It increases the amount of work an election official has to do to count and recount. And we already know there's, faith, trust, and confidence waning in a lot of those folks too. The whole thing is a system set up for failure. No wonder the left is pushing it all in unison. You're seeing a lot of bills being introduced around this country, but I'll tell you, working with these state legislatures, Chris, as you know, we're doing it. The America First Policy Institute, the Center for Election Integrity. We've had the introduction of bills in Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and others outlawing ranked choice voting. We're doing one in Iowa as well, South Dakota. And so people are paying attention to this now because they understand it may work at the little, the local Moose Lodge for your next chairman and vice chairman, but for a statewide election, it doesn't work, and you can't do it.
Love it.
But hey, by the way, I'm not trying to produce your segment here, but I just have to say, I worked for Mike Huckabee when Sarah was 19 years old. So I've known her for 25 years. How incredible did she do last night in that rebuttal? You want to talk about a contrast from someone like Joe Biden yelling and screaming, offering no solutions. Sarah being calm and measured, funny, but also bringing some heat. I thought she did an outstanding job in articulating the vision of a new generation of Republican official in this country.
Hogan, we were kind of on a Vulcan mind meld there because I was kind of going to go there next with you. I wanted to ask you about, it's almost a useless exercise in stupidity for us to continue to go through Joe Biden's speech last night because, as you already pointed out, the entire thing, there was little truth in any of it. It misrepresented the State of the Union as we find it. It completely lied about what the Democrats have done to the union over the last 2 years. And it also created a lot of falsehoods about the Republican plans. Well, Hogan, thank goodness we had the rebuttal of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And what a refreshing difference. As you just pointed out, there was somebody youthful with poise, a lady leader for today and tomorrow. It also exemplifies how deep and wide the Republican bench is. Hogan, with how bad that speech was, how good Sarah's rebuttal was, and the fact that Republicans now do at least have the House and the power of the purse, Republicans can really show a difference in agendas over the next 2 years, Hogan, right? What would you suggest that they do other than following in Sarah Huckabee Sanders' lead?
Well, look, I think that's a good place to start because of a lot of the things she articulated. I love a couple of the lines right off the bat, talking about how she's 40 years old, the youngest governor of the country. At 80, he's the oldest president in American history. I think to say I'm the first woman to lead my state, he's the first man to surrender his presidency to a woke mob that can't even tell you what a woman is. She talked about the culture wars and said, look, we didn't start this fight, but we're going to be in it, and we're going to fight hard. We're going to fight to win. I thought that was an important moment in her speech, too. But also, she understands she's in a unique position. She understands the inner workings of the federal government, having been in the Trump administration, but also what it takes to run a state, having, a father who was a governor, and she worked on those campaigns. So she understands the tendency of Washington to overreach. She understands the tendency of the federal government to get too involved in people's lives. So she knows how to stop it at the same time, and she knows what the people want because she traveled to all 75 counties, did it the right way. The Republican Party would do wise to mirror what Sarah Sanders has done, and that is listen to their constituencies. For too long, they run on issues, make promises, and never keep them. If Donald Trump did one thing, he did a bunch. But if he did one thing, he made promises and he kept promises. Sarah's doing the same thing right off the bat with 7 executive orders on not being able to teach critical race theory and outlawing the word Latinx, et cetera, in schools. This is a big, bold move by a new generation who isn't afraid to fight the fights that need to be fought. She's leading the way, and I think Republicans really should mirror every step Sarah's taking to this point.
Hogan, I have two quick questions for you, sir. Are you on Newsmax in the morning?
I am.
I will talk to you and see you in the morning, sir. And also, will you be in Washington next week for the American First Policy Institute Black History Luncheon?
I will be here next week. As well.
Excellent. Well, I get to finally meet you in person. Look forward to that.
Oh, that's great.
Excellent.
That's really good. I've just been able to admire your commentary and your political thought from afar. Now I get to see some of it up close and personal in action. I'm pumped about that.
Oh, my God. Hogan, is your address correct? So is my check getting to the right place? That was quite an endorsement.
Well,
thank you.
Well, absolutely. I'm still waiting for that check I was supposed to get for that Best Dressed Award you told me I got.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Still
true.
waiting for that.
That's true. Yeah. Boy, the thing about 21st century and tape, or 20th century. All right, Tim, let me start digging a hole here.
We'll let you dig out of that for a second. Hogan, oh, by the way, folks, we are speaking to Hogan Gidley, our good friend who's the vice chair at the Center for Election Integrity, former national press secretary for the Trump campaign, at J. Hogan Gidley on Twitter. Hogan, if you were advising the Congress, and you probably do speak to a few congressmen and women from time to time, what would you suggest they do as some, now that we've got all the pomp and circumstance out of the way, the first month of session, the State of the Union's done, rubber hits the road now, right, Hogan? And what would you advise the legislature to do? And I would ask you to focus on legislation and or oversight. What do you think are the priorities?
Oh, look, I think legislation is key to show kind of solutions to a lot of the problems we face. You'll notice yesterday in that speech, Joe Biden talked about a lot of problems, but they're all problems he created. He was talking about we should buy American. We should do everything here except make energy, of course. I mean, things like that, they're just so overtly stupid. But I think Republicans have a good chance here to do a few things. One is to put forth some bills, to put forth some legislation that people can understand and grasp, that are in those 80-20 America First policy, realm, scope, because so many people do approve of what we're working on, for example, over at AFPI, focusing on the issues that people care about, whether it be crime, whether you're talking about the lower taxes, of course, closing the southern border, standing up to China, all the things that people want to have happen. But at the same time, they're going to have to make a good case for saying no. It's much easier to rally around the word no, especially when you're in the minority. Now, even though they have the majority of the House, the political reality exists. The Democrats control the White House. They control the Senate. So they're going to have to rally around no. I think they're going to be able to do it, but they're going to have to be more savvy about the way they articulate why they are standing up and saying no, why they are against the president, because the media sure isn't going to give them a fair shake if last night is any indication. And every time Republicans try and fight, they're going to say, wait a minute, you're trying to cut Social Security, you're trying to cut Medicare, all those things are lies and falsehoods. So they're going to have to do a good job messaging it. And then third, they're going to have some substantial investigations into Hunter Biden, into the Afghanistan debacle, into China, and those types of things. And they can't just be for political grandstanding. And my point would be Hunter Biden, a great example. You pull on that thread and you do it the right way, that Hunter Biden investigation better turn into a Joe Biden investigation pretty quick, because 10% for the big guy. Joe Biden talked a lot about the economy last night and increasing taxes on everybody and everything else. 10% sounds like a good number to me. Let's find out what 10% and the big guy got first. Then we'll worry about everybody else's taxes.
Absolutely. Hogan, thanks so much for joining Chris and I. Again, we promise we won't be strangers. We'll get you back on again here real soon in the near future.
Talk to you in the morning, my friend.
Thanks so much, guys. See you in the morning, Chris.
All right,
Absolutely.
Hogan. See you.
Bye, y'all.
Good. All right, Hogan Gidley. Man, he was fired up, ready to roll today.
He was.
He's a fun guy.
He is very fun.
Great to have on. And Chris gets to talk to him tomorrow morning on Newsmax at 5:36 and 7.
5:36 and 7.
I remember.
And for the ladies, he's got a picture of himself out in the woods after hunting. Hogan's a pretty buff guy. You only see a picture, but he's in pretty good shape.
Dude's in shape.
Yeah,
he
he's
really
got
is.
guns.
Yes, he does. All right, we're going to talk to Larry Barron's next. Some of Joe Biden's biggest blundering lies. We're about the oil, gas, and energy industry. We'll break those down with Larry Behrens of Power of the Future next when we return on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 1019, 94.1 News Talk STL.
From home improvement to replacement, do-it-yourself electrical projects can be shocking. That's where Grasser Electric can help. They've been lighting up St. Louis for years. From ceiling fans and dimmer switches to repair or replacing your electric. No job is too big or too small for your home or business. Grasser Electric will even install emergency backup generators. So call Grasser Electric today before the sparks start to fly. 636-441-5200 or go to grasserelectric.com.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Money Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on St. Louis radio for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. Doug and Safe Money Radio is on 3 times every weekend, but in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeMoneyRadio.com or call 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233. Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities, LLLP. Member FINRA and SIPC.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Stretch rescue teams in Turkey and Syria are searching for signs of life in the rubble of thousands of buildings toppled by a catastrophic earthquake. The confirmed death toll from the world's deadliest quake in more than a decade approached 12,000 on Wednesday. While teams from more than 24 countries have local emergency personnel on the ground, the scale and scope of destruction from Monday's 7.8 magnitude quake and its powerful aftershocks was so immense that many people were still awaiting help. Town Hall News is joining forces with international nonprofit relief agency Food for the Poor to rush emergency relief, food, and water to victims of the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. More information available on the website srnnews.com. Volodymyr Zelensky is ensuring his country's victory over Russia in a dramatic speech before the UK Parliament.
Zelensky notes that the British monarch was a highly qualified military pilot, while underlining the high value placed on his own fighter pilots as they battle Russia.
In Ukraine today, every Air Force pilot is a king.
Zelensky, wearing his trademark olive drab sweatshirt, urges allies to send his country jets, saying combat aircraft would be the wings for freedom. I'm Charles Villadesma.
A big fireball and billowing smoke rose into the sky when officials released and burned toxic chemicals from the wreckage of a derailed train in an Ohio village. Residents in the immediate area there and nearby in Pennsylvania remained evacuated Wednesday because of health risks from the fumes. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 207 points. More at townhall.com.
Dennis Prager here. Sue and I mean it. Dogs are part of our family. We love Otto and Snoopy so much. There's nothing quite like their loyal companionship. So we provide them with Rough Greens. In fact, I just talked to my wife about it because we want them to be healthy and we want them to be with us as long as possible. That's true. I know Sebastian Gorka feels the same way.
The Pragers and I couldn't agree more. Our pups, Killian and Leia, rely on us to provide what's best for them. And naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black has packed Rough Greens full of vitamins, minerals, digestive enzymes, omega oils, and more that supplement their food in a way that has shown us great results. Trying out Rough Greens is an easy yes, recommended by me, Dr. G.
Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm so proud that the Pragers and Sebastian Gorka have entrusted their dog's health to Rough Greens. I'm so confident that Rough Greens can help your dog, I'm offering you a free Jumpstart trial bag. Just cover the shipping. Yes, your dog's food is dead food, but you can bring it back to life with Rough Greens. Go to ruffgreens.com today.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The rain continues throughout the night tonight, ending before the Thursday morning drive, though. A half an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall with an isolated storm. Better chance to the south and southeast. Low down to 43, but during the morning drive, the winds really start kicking. Some gusts in the 40 to 45 mile per hour range. But again, dry for the rest of the morning and afternoon, and turning partly cloudy late in the day with a high of 48. Friday, 39 for a colder day. Slight chance for a little rain-snow mix. Better chance south of St. Louis. That's the latest First Alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Hey, it's Mike Ferguson here. Everybody here at News Talk STL is incredibly grateful for the growth of our business during our first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Clear Path Wealth Management, STL Fence Works, and Michael's Flooring that have all become advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. Thanks for listening to News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Well, folks, you just heard that we are sponsored by the Wallner Home Selling Team at Berkshire Hathaway. Yes, we are, and we thank them so much for assisting us over the last few years. And they want to help you with what you may ask, selling your home, of course. Look, folks, I know these are tough, challenging times. None of us know the future, not even Jerome Powell over at the Fed. So I can tell you what the Wallners have told me, that right now is still an excellent time to sell your home. Will it be that way next month or in 2 or 3 months from now? We don't know. But right now is a great time to sell your home, which is why you should call Rodney and Jen Wallner if you're even thinking about that prospect at 314-810-SOLD. When you speak with them, the first thing they're going to do is sit you down, make you comfortable, offer you a flexible commission plan tailored to your family-specific needs. That will always include a no obligation, no long-term commitment clause. They have so many approved home buyers that they'll guarantee to obtain you an offer. It's because they're selling 15 times more homes per year than your typical realtor. You can get that extremely high level of service as well when you call Rodney and Jen at 314-810-SOLD. Call the Wallner Home Selling Team today. Get that awesome service from this husband and wife team and a free listing consultation to sell that home with this top-producing team of Rodney and Jen Wallner. 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD.
Listen anytime.
It happens
anywhere. Everywhere.
Every day continues to bring more news.
With the News Talk STL app. Keep St. Louis's home for conservative talk with you wherever you go. Download the News Talk STL app in the App Store or at newstalkstl.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Have you noticed Big Oil just reported its profits, record profits? They invested too little of that profit to increase domestic production. And when I talk to a couple of them, they say, we're afraid you're going to shut down all the oil wells and all the oil refineries anyway, so why should we invest in them? I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade. And that's going to exceed and beyond that. We're going to need it. Production.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show here at News Talk STL 101.9 Chris, one of the many examples of the delusions that run through the empty mind of Joe Biden.
I have to disagree with you on that, Tim.
Okay.
I think that was one point where the president had complete clarity. We are going to need oil
for
the next 10 years. And I think the liberals in the audience who want to ban oil tomorrow were aghast at that. So I think that was a moment of clarity for the president yesterday, a rare moment of clarity.
Yeah, I like, you know what, the way I was, this is why Joe Biden is so confusing, because I had a completely different thought on that. I thought he was saying, well, in 10 years, we're going to shut it all off, basically. So either way, It was a lot of crazy talk last night, and I think it showed one of the features of the speech that I'm going to ask Larry Behrens of next. Larry Behrens, the Director of Communications at Power the Future, at Larry Behrens on Twitter. Larry, thanks so much for making some time again this afternoon for Chris and I here at News Talk STL.
Oh, always great to talk with you guys. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Larry, if I was going to take something away, like kind of the big macro level from that speech, it seemed to me that Joe Biden, Larry, was proposing one of the largest, most expansive, most authoritarian, centralized federal governments we've ever seen in the United States and maybe around the world. And a lot of that, Larry, was focused on what he wants to do to the oil and natural gas and energy industry in general. Basically, it sounds like, Larry, he wants to completely nationalize and federalize the whole thing, which is going to make everything in this country even worse than it already is, not better, right?
Absolutely. And let's just, I kind of agree when you say that, he finally admitted that we're going to need it for 10 years. And I think he even whispered like beyond that when everyone started laughing at him. But his words don't match his actions. Shocking when it comes to Joe Biden. Listen, we're here with the president who has leased the fewest acres of American land for oil and natural gas development since Harry Truman. And that's just because they started the program under Harry Truman. And we see that, production is down well over 500,000 barrels, more like 630,000 barrels a day of United States production. So when he says those things like my administration isn't standing in the way, my administration is doing all those things, we know it's a lie. And that's what I got to tell you, that was the most entertaining part of the speech for me last night, was him having to finally face, go outside that little bubble where everyone tells him he's right and he can just say whatever he wants. It's not challenged, because he doesn't get that from the media. And so to hear people actually point out how wrong he is and him to have to face it, it was incredible to see. But as you point out, that did not stop him from working overtime to try to mislead the American public.
Larry, I've always told the green activists that when we can send astronauts to the moon and can fire up nuclear submarines on grease and oil and algae, then I'll be all for the green movement. But until then, I think it's pie in the sky. Recently, a hydrogen airplane has been tested, and I want to ask you, how feasible will that be for future travel? And I just want to tell you, when I think of hydrogen transportation, I think of the Hindenburg.
Well, it's really interesting when we look at hydrogen, because that is something that's been put out there as a transition or something that can be used. But that is also created from the extractive industries, right? And so Enviro is just kicking off the table right away, kind of like they do with nuclear. It's not their favorite little child. And so regardless of how well it works, regardless of how well it meets the demands that they say they have, they just kick it right off the side. But to your point, you know what? If there is someone in a garage somewhere or in a lab somewhere inventing the better mousetrap when it comes to energy, then that is wonderful and great. But what we found is we have this administration, and the president mentioned it last night, we're investing billions in this. Well, you know what? We didn't have to invest billions in the iPhone. It was a product the world wanted, the product the world adopted. We didn't have to invest billions in the gas stations across the country. Again, a product we adopted and wanted. The free market decided that those products worked. And that is, when you talk about the authoritarian government, that's part that really, really worries me, because when you have the government saying, no, we're not going to let the free market, we're not going to let consumers choose, we're going to decide for you. And, oh, by the way, give me that gas stove.
Yeah, a lot of picking of winners and losers last night. Larry, I think two of the biggest whoppers that Joe Biden told last night, Larry, were that gas prices are down from their peak under my watch, and that Americans are enjoying lower utility bills. I mean, Larry, if we were going to make an analogy to Joe Biden's declaration there, it would be kind of like saying to someone, well, I did set your entire subdivision on fire, but at least I put it out in your neighbor's backyard, so yay me, right?
Yeah, that's exactly my analogy, Tim. It's, the arsonist, hey, guess what? It's not a $3 fire, so thank me. No, I mean, it is the person that caused the problem wanting to get credit for the problem not being as bad as it was. And I don't think we didn't notice all those pictures on nearly every network. President leaves White House to head for the Capitol. He wasn't in the solar-powered limousine. He wasn't in the wind-powered limousine. They argue that you can't have the fossil fuels. They will not give it up themselves. And so it is incredible to see him want to throw billions upon billions of our money at this issue when he won't even change his lifestyle himself. Joe Biden doesn't own an electric vehicle himself, and so he expects all of us to rush out and have $66,000 sitting in our pocket after paying, to your point exactly, these high utility bills. You know what? The census does what they call a household pulse survey, and they found that 21% of American households have not been able to pay their energy bills in full over the last year. You know, when 1 in 5 Americans can't pay their energy bills, that doesn't mean that it's going down to me. That means things are getting tougher, and Americans are having to figure out ways to get by while, you know, the president sits in a delusional world.
Larry, I was channel surfing yesterday evening, and I happened to stop on the Jesse Waters show on Fox, and I witnessed probably one of the saddest things ever in my life. And it was in a big open mine in Eastern Africa, where there were literally thousands of people that were digging for the minerals that are needed to make these electric batteries. And there was a couple of these kids that were probably 6 or 7 years old that had this green haze or dust that was on their bodies. And just seeing that was just, it almost made me cry. And, if people that were really on board for the green movement, who want us driving these lawnmowers and doing these other green things, if they actually could see what was going on, do you think it would change their minds?
Well, let me be the downer of this conversation. It's actually worse than that, Chris. They know that's where it's coming from. They know that's the conditions of their quote-unquote solution, and they know that it takes thousands of pounds of mined material to get to the EV batteries of just a single electric vehicle, and they know who's doing it, under what conditions. They don't care. Because while they say they care for the planet, while they say they care for the people, they're really, what they're saying is, as long as we get political power at home, as long as we can control people's lives at home, they don't care if more oil is coming out of the ground in Saudi Arabia or Venezuela. They only care if it's coming out here. They don't care if mining operations are just the abysmal human conditions that we see in Africa and China. They just care that it's not happening here. So as long as they can control the politicians in Washington, and judging by the State of the Union last night, they got pretty good control over a lot of them there, then they're going to continue to be happy. It is, it absolutely, I agree. It is heartbreaking, and it is the absolute truth of what they propose as a solution. And I'm here to tell you, they know about it and they don't care.
Mm-hmm. We're speaking to Larry Behrens of Power the Future, powerthefuture.com. So, Larry, now that all the lies and the falsehoods have been told via the State of the Union, I guess Americans now, Larry, can choose over the next 2 years which direction we want to go. What would you, if we were advising congressional Republicans, who are, they're not going to be able to move a lot of legislation forward, but they can speak pretty loudly through the budgetary process. Larry, what, if anything, can congressional Republicans do through the budgetary process over the next couple of years to try to leverage Joe Biden away from the insanity of the Green New Deal?
Great question. And so, what was interesting to me about last night was he tried to strike this bipartisan tone, right? So you can tell we're getting ready for re-election Joe Biden. We're just going to try to pretend that he wasn't the crazy radical he was over the last 2 years, forcing us on this terrible trial of the Green New Deal over the last 2 years. And so I would call his bluff on that. Joe Biden, in the Inflation Reduction Act, put in a natural gas tax that will hit everyone in starting January 2024. And so your natural gas bill is going to go even higher. And so I would bring a bill and say, hey, you know what? In the spirit of bipartisanship, Mr. President, why don't we go ahead and repeal this? In fact, they've already dropped a bill to repeal it. Why don't they force his hand and say, if you really want to lower utility bills, if you really want to work together, here's our proposal, and we can come together. If you care about seniors and you care about how much they're paying to heat their homes, we can really work together on this. Now, we know that it's probably going to face his veto pen because the AOCs of the world will not let that happen. And that's when we turn to, what we're seeing a little bit today. We're seeing the investigatory power of it. John Kerry needs to be called before Congress, and we need to find out who he's meeting with, who's driving his agenda, because I have a feeling that you'll find that it is radical environmental groups, and those radical environmental groups need to answer about where they're getting their money from, because they've never really been upfront about whether or not it's from out of this country, because it seems like everything that they want to impose on our country benefits our adversaries abroad, the people sending balloons over the state.
Larry, with heating oil, especially this winter at record prices, because of factors here in our country and also because of overseas, the war in Ukraine and all, how feasible is it for these homes in the future to be heated with geothermal heating instead of with heating oil?
It's really interesting. I don't know is the short answer to that. But I can tell you when we look at things like, let's say for a moment that solar and wind work 100% of the time, and it doesn't. And let's say it produces enough energy to replace the energy needs we have now, which it absolutely does not. You would still need much more infrastructure built. You would need those facilities built. You would need those transmission lines built, and a lot of things built. And it would just be in the billions, if not trillions of dollars. And that's when we look at, your home. Is it a solution that could work? Yes. But do Americans, after going through what Joe Biden has put them through the last couple of years, do they have the thousands upon thousands of dollars that it may take to retrofit their home? I don't know. And I would say probably not, with, 1 in 5 not being able to pay their current energy bills. And so what my solution to that would be, why don't we go back to making reliable and affordable energy available to Americans again, and then they can have a determination what is best for their home and what to do with their own money.
Could not agree more. Larry, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for all your insight and analysis.
Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen, thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
You too as well. Folks, that's Larry Behrens, and he is the Director of Communications at an awesome group that we have access to, Power the Future. You can check them out at powerthefuture.com, advocating for America's energy industry. All right, it is about to become 4:20 in the p.m. here in the Heartland. When we come back, we actually have an open segment, which means we can talk to you all, 314-912-1019. We'll remind you about a great event that we have coming up. If you haven't gotten your tickets, you need to do that today. We'll give you all the details on that. Happy to talk to you as well, 314-912-1019. And then Chris will prepare us for Chris's Corner at 4:45. All that and more straight ahead here at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The rain continues throughout the night tonight, ending before the Thursday morning drive, though. A half an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall with an isolated storm. Better chance to the south and southeast. Low down to 43, but during the morning drive, the winds really start kicking. Some gusts in the 40 to 45 mile per hour range. But again, dry for the rest of the morning and afternoon, and turning partly cloudy late in the day with a high of 48. Friday, 39 for a colder day. Slight chance for a little rain-snow mix. Better chance south of St. Louis. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Hey, Colombo here for Zero Res. February is the month for love, but when was the last time you gave your carpet the love it deserves? Your carpet is the largest air filter in your home, so if it hasn't been cleaned, you're breathing unhealthy levels of germs. But Zero Res can help. If you book a cleaning now and mention the Colombo special, you'll get 3 rooms zero resified starting at just $119, plus they'll clean a hallway for free and take $75 off an air duct cleaning. This month only, so book now, 314-474-2020 or online at zeroresstl.com.
Michaels Flooring Outlet is a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years, featuring exclusive products, unbeatable prices, and expert installation. You can choose from a wide variety of flooring options, including carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, plus many other options. And you'll gain a peace of mind knowing that your flooring and carpet installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michaels. You can shop in-store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home online. Check out everything Michaels Flooring has to offer at igotfloored.com.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
October, today I wanted to talk, if you don't mind, about drug prices. You okay with that?
Street drugs or pharmaceuticals? What are you talking about?
I don't know. What do you got?
What are you looking for? I don't wear trench coats. No, I'm kidding you. Hey, I heard you. I couldn't believe what they're charging now. They're going to charge $100 for marijuana growers if you want to cultivate marijuana, like privately, just for your own use. You're going to have to get a license from the state, and it's crazy.
Vic Porcelli, live and local, weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Tim Jones. You need an event space that people will talk about later and forever? View 17 in Brentwood is that place. Perfect for corporate, private, or even public events, View 17 is ultra modern and fully broadcast ready for live streaming your event. And get this, all tech rentals are included in the rental fee. View 17 on the 17th floor of the old U Club Tower, like no other event space in the area. What a view. Check it out right now at VUE17.com. VUE17.com. I might even see you there.
I'm Susie Moore, and this is More to the Point. I don't mean to be a downer, but as I record this commentary on Tuesday afternoon, Joe Biden is set to give his second State of the Union address this evening. While there's no way to predict the specifics of the speech, one thing I'm fairly comfortable predicting is that it will contain a few flubs, several lies, and tons of spin. To be completely fair, one might contend that's true of most presidential addresses, at least as to the spin part. Flubs may vary depending on the speaker's eloquence, and lies seem to rest in the eyes or ears of the beholder. Either way, I suspect few people look to a State of the Union address for education or enlightenment. Mostly it's a chance to either cheer your champion or jeer your opposition, perhaps an excuse to pop some popcorn and come up with a drinking game of some sort. I would submit that far more important than the State of the Union is the fate of the Union, because these days it doesn't seem nearly so secure as we once took for granted it was. Some of that I attribute simply to getting older and becoming more jaded, but it's hard to take a clear-eyed look at present circumstances and not feel concerned about what the future holds, particularly with leadership that instills little confidence or cause for optimism. We could really use a dose of both right about now.
Susie Moore is Deputy Managing Editor for RedState.com. For more to the point and everything Susie Moore, log on to RedState.com. Follow Susie on Twitter at SmoozyQ and keep listening to 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. The news and talk that affects St. Louis.
Was that your laptop? For real, I don't know.
He's acknowledging now it is his laptop.
This is 1019 and 94.1.
The border is dangerous, fentanyl traffickers, and violent criminals.
News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
I can still shut down the party. I can hang with anybody. I can drink whiskey and red wine, champagne and all that. Little scotch on the rocks and I'm fine, I'm fine. But when I taste tequila, baby, I still see you cutting up the floor to sorority.
And while you reap the consequences of their failures, the Biden administration seems more interested in woke fantasies than the hard reality Americans face every day. Most Americans simply want to live their lives in freedom and peace. But we are under attack in a left-wing culture war we didn't start and never wanted to fight. Every day we are told we must partake in their rituals, salute their flags, and worship their false idols. All while big government colludes with big tech to strip away the most American thing there is, your freedom of speech. That's not normal. It's crazy, and it's wrong.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders there delivering the State of the Union rebuttal for Republicans. Boy, Chris, what a difference those two speeches made.
I mean, we see freedom of speech being curtailed with what's happening with Newsmax, the fourth-rated cable channel in the country. All they ask is $1 per subscriber per year, and Newsmax or DirecTV won't pay them. And I have a thing on my Facebook page that shows, but they pay 22 other cable channels a fee, some of up to $14 an hour. We $14 per subscriber. We see also with Twitter and with Hunter Biden's laptop, all of that. It's just a censorship, and we have to fight, or we're going to absolutely lose our rights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, just one last thing I just want to say. I've had a picture, a meme here that really explains what has happened. It says 1995, quote, "Love is love. We just want acceptance." 2005, "We just want equality." 2012, "Bake the cake or go to court."
Mm-hmm.
2015, "Say my pronouns or lose your job." 2023, "The kids will watch drag shows." I mean, that's pretty much been the progression of all of this from 1995, 1993, when that book, I Have Two Mommies, I Am Two Daddies, that's when that book came out in the early 90s.
Let's call it the devolution of the old-fashioned hippie liberal, the classical liberal, into today's hardcore leftist. Remember back in the day, the Woodstock days, it was, dude, put your weed in it and peace, love, and joy and rock out, man, and you do you and I'll do me, right? It used to be, we just want, the liberals used to be the ones who would kind of take freedom almost to the ridiculous extreme, like smoke them if you got them. And now it's like, as you said, Chris, you will go to the drag show. You will provide gender-affirming care.
Yeah.
You will commit an abortion. It's all this, it's this authoritarian force where the old school liberal, the Bill Maher liberal, who is just as exacerbated by this as we are, that has seemed to have gone by the wayside.
Yeah, the liberal progressives of today, they don't view you as just a person who has a different opinion than theirs. You are the enemy, and you have to be annihilated. You have to be destroyed, and that's something that we haven't seen in prior generations. We've had disagreements. We hear the famous story of Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, would fight like cats and dogs during the day, and at night they'd have a drink and solve problems. You don't see that anymore because, on the left will argue that we see them as enemies, but I don't think we see them as that. We just want to, as Sarah Huckabee said, just want to preserve our culture. But I think that's the problem. We're the enemy. We must be destroyed.
Well, I think the other issue with that is that there cannot be a difference of opinion on the left. You, as you said, you are either believing everything that I say in my ideology, you believe in the leftist movement and the culture, and if you do not, and we've seen this from the top down with their leadership, if you do not, then you are the enemy.
Do you know what you're describing right now?
Socialism.
You're describing black people and the black Democrats and black Republicans, where if you are a black Republican and you do not follow the liberal ideology, the orthodoxy, then you're the enemy. You must be destroyed. We don't want to hear any outside opinion. You just described the struggle in the black community.
And you know what else?
Between political ideologies.
To add on top of that, also describing a pro-life woman. If you are a pro-life woman,
very true,
as a millennial, specifically a millennial this day and age, nobody gets you. No one understands you. How can you be against women's rights? How can you be against abortions? How can you be against
Are y'all the new black?
I mean, I don't think so.
Because, Katie, they've turned They've turned it from abortion on demand into reproductive health choices.
Absolutely. That the messaging, as we have said 1,000 times before, liberals and Democrats are exquisite at messaging. They understand how to get it through and to make something simple like women's rights into something and categorize abortion as something as universal as women's rights. They do the same thing in the black community where it's like, how could you be against the government that's working to help you get jobs and to get the leg up that you deserve?
And you're a sellout and you're like a traitor, not just, hey, okay, you got a different point of view. That's you. No, you are a sellout. You are a traitor. You are to be shunned. Like you're giving information to white people. Some type of traitor in that sense, almost.
Well, we talked about this off air too yesterday, Chris, and you brought this up. It was about the Breakfast Club, but I think the message still kind of resonates. I see this a lot on Twitter whenever it comes to the black community, and if you're a conservative, there's so many people, I cannot believe this, but there are so many Democratic black people that say, why are you trying so hard to be white if you're conservative? And you're a black man or woman. I mean, I'm sure you've gotten messages like that.
Sure.
How can that be?
For some, it's two things. One, it's just a way to insult you, first and foremost, to say something like that. And to others, it's just hard for them to fathom how you as a black person could not be with us and look at the Democrats' history and what they've done for us. How can you not be a part of us and be with them? And they look at that somehow as selling out. But from my advantage point, I look at it as, Look how the Democrats have treated black people the last 50 or 60 years. Look what their results have resulted for black people. And I'm like, why the hell do I want to go down that path? I'm doing the exact opposite. That's not a winner path. That's 50 years. This is not an experiment anymore. We've seen the results of 50 or 60 years, and that don't work. I ain't following that.
And then we have opposite in the room, Tim Jones, who is public enemy number one.
And you know what, Katie? It got worse today. And I'm probably on a list, and you may be on this list too. You remember how we were hearing about all the whistleblowers? Congressman Jim Jordan's been talking about all the FBI whistleblowers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Well, some of the whistleblower documents are starting to drop. And guess what was in the first batch? The FBI cites the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is basically communists on our shores, in a report on, quote, radical traditionalist Catholic ideology as being the next terrorism concern in our country. So not on top of the fact that I'm a white male, I'm a white male Catholic, and so I might as well be thrown in Guantanamo with the rest of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda.
But just think about
That's
that.
how dangerous I am.
Well, let's just think about this, though. Let's just break this down to just see how the Southern Poverty Law Center has just gone full circle. Now, in the 60s and 70s, they were a credible organization that did research and did accountability of racist groups in the South, that discriminated against blacks, that discriminated against other people, discriminated against Catholics. And now for them in 2023 to turn around and become so radical that now the very people that they try to protect, blacks, Catholics, and other groups that were discriminated against by the Ku Klux Klan and other racist groups, now you want to lump them in with those groups. That just shows you how far that group is really fallen. Because the Southern Poverty Law Center was at one time. It was very respected. And they've just gone down this rabbit hole of progressive activism, and they've lost all their credibility, at least with me.
And so was the ACLU. The ACLU, Chris, back in the day was the same way. The ACLU used to take on litigation cases to defend the most horrific speach.
Yeah, well, you know, their most famous case in Skokie.
KKK,
yeah.
Right? And their argument was they weren't defending illegal speech or illegal acts. They were defending speech that was otherwise legal, but that made people uncomfortable, that was horrific. And they said their argument was, when they were actually a legitimate classical liberal organization, if we don't defend the terrible speech, then all speech will be banned next.
The Ku Klux Klan, the ACLU, defended the Ku Klux Klan's right to march in the town of Skokie, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, I think, still. And Skokie, Illinois, was a town that was made up of Holocaust survivors, which is predominantly a Jewish town. And the ACLU fought for the KKK to be able to do that because it was a free speech right. And that's one of their most famous cases.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Because
they were right.
Well, because we don't have the First Amendment to protect our right to talk about pink fluffy unicorns, as my daughters might say. We have the First Amendment to talk about things that are controversial. And so if they come for the controversial speech, then they're going to come for all speech. And we've seen that today in these hearings on Capitol Hill, where I saw Lauren Boebert made a great comment that's gone viral. She said, you know what? It's really hard to tell looking backwards to see where in the world the FBI ends and Twitter begins.
Yeah.
That's a great quote. Yeah.
And, you know, one thing that, my wife watches NCIS shows and all of these spinoffs and all of that. And she used to watch one of the FBI shows, the new one, and then she kind of trailed off on it. But I'm just wondering, too, is it a coincidence that we're seeing all of these FBI shows coming out now when the FBI has had a black eye for the last few years for being the deep state and all of that? Is this Hollywood and the deep state working together to show a good view of the FBI, how they're protecting the American people and keeping us safe? Because there's like 3 FBI programs on right now.
Do you remember whenever this...
I like the theory.
I do too. I like the theory. Well, Do you remember whenever all of this conflict first initially began with the I know it began, I mean, when Trump started his presidency, there was there's conflict. But the end of his presidency and the beginning of Joe Biden's presidency, there was this time period where everyone worked overtime to confirm that the FBI was do-gooders and doing everything in their everything in their power to protect the nation and protect its citizens. Do you guys remember there was like that time period where it was like every single time you turned on the news, everyone was like trying so hard to be like, the FBI is so good, the FBI isn't corrupt, there's nothing wrong with the FBI.
Yeah, because Trump was basically criticizing the deep state, the leaders of the FBI. And so they were trying to say that, Trump is criticizing the FBI as a whole and saying it's bad. He wasn't. He was talking about the leaders are corrupt.
Every government institution is in need of reform from time to time, even the FBI. How about the 51 intel officers who said the former intel officers said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation?
Yeah.
Before we get to a break and then come back with Chris's Corner, I almost forgot. I promised you all we'd tell you about our big event. Katie informs us the tickets are going really fast for the Defending America event, telling stories we shouldn't tell. Chris, you and I will be at View 17 on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023, with our very good friends Dakota Wood of the Heritage Foundation and U.S. Senator Jim Talent. Tickets are free, folks. All you need to do is reserve your seats. You do need to reserve your seats. Please only reserve seats if you intend to come, because we want everybody to be able to pack this place, which we believe will sell out. Go to newstalkstl.com for all information and to get tickets. Chris, this should be a really fun night with where we finally get to meet Dakota Wood in person and, of course, see our very good old friend, former U.S. Senator Jim Talent.
Yeah, Katie told us during the break that if we give out numbers, she'll cut our tongues out. But I just want to say, if you plan on coming to the event, you need to get on it.
Yes,
that's all I'll say.
That's good.
You need to get on it.
Yeah, let's just say this. Let's just say this. We made this announcement 48 hours ago, and if the trend continues, folks, if you wait till next week, you may be waiting too long. We'll just put it that way. I would go to newstalkstl.com right now, reserve your tickets, and join us on Tuesday, March 14th for the Defending America event. Chris, we have Chris's Corner next up on the docket.
Yeah, we do. I'm going to talk about a bad experience I had with the old unreliable post office and my frustrations with that. When we come back on Chris's Corner at 4:45, Katie? Is that what it
That's
is?
it, 4:45.
All right.
It's already 4:40 on
believe it.
A happy hump day. Chris's Corner is next. And in the 5 o'clock hour, the Speaker's Stump Speech and our good Iowa friend, Iowa political strategist Karen Fessler. We'll be talking a lot more about Iowa in the months ahead. She's going to give us an update on what is next there. Chris's Corner, though, is next on the post office here at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to News Talk STL.
Same songs in my car. Baby, your memory, it only hits me this hard.
Talk lines are open now at 314-912-1019. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The rain continues throughout the night tonight, ending before the Thursday morning drive, though. A half an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall with an isolated storm. Better chance to the south and southeast. Low down to 43, but during the morning drive, the winds really start kicking. Some gusts in the 40 to 45 mile per hour range. But again, dry for the rest of the morning and afternoon, and turning partly cloudy late in the day with a high of 48. Friday, 39 for a colder day. Slight chance for a little rain-snow mix. Better chance south of St. Louis. That's the latest First Alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Subscribe and watch your favorite News Talk STL shows. Mike Ferguson in the morning. The Vic Porcelli Show. Columbo and Katie. Jones and Arps. Webcam streaming on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. Subscribe and watch News Talk STL.
School choice is an idea whose time has come. It's flourishing in many states, just not in Missouri. Take charter schools, a great alternative for parents whose kids may be trapped in a failing school district. But charter schools are currently only available to families in just 3 of 520 school districts: Kansas City, the city of St. Louis, and Normandy. Open enrollment allows students to enroll in a district other than the one in which they live. It's important because rural schools may not offer all the advanced classes larger districts do. Open enrollment does exist in Missouri, but participation is highly restricted. And the Empowerment Scholarship Account, or ESA program, needs to be expanded so many more parents of students with disabilities and low-income students can access it. Charter schools, open enrollment, ESAs. If they're good for some children, they should be good for all children. Check out our 2023 blueprint, Moving Missouri Forward, at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Hey, it's Katie. We here at News Talk STL really appreciate the growth in our business during our first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Save Money with Doug Voss, Crypto World, and the Natural Institute of Health that have all become part of our family of advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com.
1019-941 News Talk STL.
Hi, Susie Moore here. American culture is at a crossroads. My friend and coworker at Red State, Kira Davis, has written a new book called Drawing Lines: Why Conservatives Must Begin to Battle Fiercely in the Arena of Ideas. She challenges conservative Americans to stop retreating from culture and helps you to think critically through the pressing cultural issues of our day and offers practical advice and solutions. It's time for conservatives to make themselves uncomfortable and get engaged, get inspired, get moving, and get winning. Pick up a copy of Kira's new book, Drawing Lines, available at Amazon, faithfultexts.com, or wherever books are sold.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps, driving the leftist crazy all afternoon.
My pronouns are kiss my ass.
Follow Chris Arps on Twitter at Chris_Arps.
I always think of Thor Ragnarok when I hear this song.
Yeah.
You know, Ted Cruz is a very interesting character, and
Yes,
as
he
I've
is.
said, I was fortunate to work on his presidential campaign, but he does things that does not endear him to people, and he's done one of those things lately. He has introduced a term limit bill for senators where they can only serve 2 terms while he's running for his 3rd term. And so people are like, and he's like, well, I'm not going to pigeonhole myself and and throw in the gauntlet or throw in the towel before this is passed. If it passed, then I'll adhere to it. But yeah, it's like, Ted, come on, that just.
Katie, what was he ranting and raving about the other day? I think it was at the end of our show, and some clip came on, and we both looked at each other. It was after our show was over, and we were getting ready to leave, and he was on. I think Larry Connors played a clip of him.
And it was something about peppermint patty shoes. And it wasn't even about Jen Psaki.
It was weird.
Like peppermint. He said peppermint patty shoes. And we're like, put on your peppermint patty shoes.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, the term limit blunder ranks right up there with when, Texas had their blizzard cold weather. And
yes.
And the heat was really bad. And me and my daughters and family are going to Cancun because this was a trip they wanted to take, and we're not trying to flee Texas, which has no heat. And
he should have just done what Joe Biden does. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
So, yeah, not a good idea. But we do have Chris's Corner. It's about a minute late. I'm going to talk about experience with our old, reliable, unreliable post office.
Chris.
The whole thing is a joke.
Good God, we gotta do something here, people.
It's not personal, it's strictly business.
My favorite black leader of all time is Frederick Douglass, who asked after emancipation, well, we just freed the blacks, now what are we going to do with them? And his answer was, leave us alone.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
All of us can relate to this. When you become an adult, there are 2 lines that you don't want to be in. One is the DMV, especially at the end of the month when people are registering their license plates, and the post office. Those are two lines where you'll feel like you are there forever, and two lines where it seems that the clerks could really care less if you get out of there today, tomorrow, or whenever. There is no sense of urgency, and it is one of the trials of life that you go through as an adult. You know, the post office, the employees always seem to be a bit apathetic. But one thing you could always depend on, though, it seemed with the post office, is that if you mailed a letter and from A, that it's going to get to B. Or a package, the same thing. That's something you just never really thought about. Even though we complained every year when a stamp went up a couple of cents or package delivery went up, you could always depend on your package getting to where it was supposed to be. I tell you, in a prior life, I was a part-time supervisor at UPS from 1987 to 1997, and while working for UPS, I learned how that if the United States Postal Service did not have a monopoly on first-class mail, they would be absolutely put out of business. That is the only thing that's keeping them in business, because other package companies can't deliver mail, only the United States Post Office can. When I got married in October of 2017, a lot of people received their wedding invitations for our wedding that December, 2 months later. But it has gotten worse. There are 2 checks that I am expecting for the consulting business that the post office says was mailed. They have a service called Informed Delivery, which will send you an email showing you the letter that's coming to your house, and it clearly shows these are 2 checks that are coming to your house. Was supposed to receive those checks last Monday. It is now a week and a half later, and the post office has no excuse, no response. All they can say is, well, when you get that email, that just means your mail is in the pipeline. Doesn't necessarily mean it's when it's going to be delivered. But a week and a half later, and I have to admit, every time that we have used Informed Delivery and we see a shot of the mail, it comes that day. But in this particular case, it is not there. To add insult to injury, the post office is losing people's mail, and they are asking for an increase in sending a letter. I have no idea what it is now, but the service is horrible. And some of the folks that commented on this post, one of them was a friend of mine I went to high school with. He worked for the post office for 23 years, and he told people that if you have an urgent package or something that needs to get somewhere, use another company or use express mail, and where you can get a receipt. And there's literally, if you go to my Facebook page, there's a 10 or 12, 15 comments of people just giving horror stories of their experiences with the United States Postal Service. As you know, the USPS is not a government agency anymore. It's a quasi-government agency, but the government supports it heavily, and they are in billions of dollars in debt because of their pension fund. But when you see this poor service that you get from the post office, something that was once reliable, it makes you really wonder, even though they're a quasi-government institution, but they are part of the government, it really makes you think, wow, and these people want to take care of our health care? Are you kidding me? And that is Chris's Corner.
I have something to say.
You got stories?
Not about the post office, but about the dreaded and the dreadful DMV.
You have a DMV story?
And this is perfect with your Chris's Corner.
Yeah.
My husband, I will not go into detail. This is the maddest I have seen him.
Wow.
In
David
like
doesn't
5
seem like
or
he would
6
get
years.
mad.
He does not get mad, but he was so mad about an incident that happened at
Did
the DMV.
they lose his license?
They didn't. But it was something ridiculous, almost as ridiculous as that. And David came home from the DMV and was like, this is why we need to privatize the DMV.
Yep.
This is why the government should not have control over the DMV. And we just need to privatize it and make it to where someone can buy the DMV and we can get this stuff functioning again, because on and on and on. because it's just
Now, people will say this. Now, and Tim, you can address this probably more than I can. Some of the offices the state runs, the DMV offices, some of them are fee offices where a nonprofit group or a company will run the fee offices on behalf of the state. And if you go to their office, you pay a little surcharge than if you went to a state office. Is that and that's a very usually that's a patronage thing. You gotta know people, and is that still like that?
That was a big that was actually a big controversy when I first got into the legislature because they were doing a lot of reforms to the way these were handled. So nowadays, in Missouri, Katie, it really depends on which office you're going to. They're all like independent franchises. So I think first dibs go to people who are running it as a not-for-profit, right, to give the money to a charitable organization or some of that sort, and then secondarily to for-profit. And because they're all independently run, basically, you really got to find out if the people running it are running it properly or not, because not all DMV offices in Missouri are created equal. That's very true. Yep. There's some really good ones out there. And there's some really bad ones out there.
I've been to some great ones.
Yeah.
I've been to some great ones, but this one that I will not name.
Hey, you know what?
It's pretty
I'll give a
rough.
shout out to a positive one if folks want to make the trip. And, I know a lot of our listeners listen to us from all over the region. The one out in Franklin County in Pacific, Missouri, I'm going to give them props. I've never had a problem there, and the ladies, I think it's all ladies. That's why I'm saying ladies, because I've seen all ladies there. They're like 4 or 5 ladies who are always working there. They're always they have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
They know that you don't want to be there.
Yes.
They know you want to get out of there as soon as possible, and so they move very quickly and to kind of make you chill out a little bit because they always know that people are just aggravated at the DMV. They'll like crack a little joke with you or a little one-liner or something, nothing over the top, but they kind of make you be like, okay, I know that you know that I hate being here,
stinks.
and so thanks for recognizing that fact and get me out of here as soon as possible. I only had one little problem. And it was something that was a computer thing, and they fixed it. And they've always been really good to me. So I'm going to give a big shout out to the one in Pacific, Missouri.
That's good. Yeah. I'm sure it's just a case-by-case
basis.
It is.
Unfortunately, it shouldn't be, Katie, but unfortunately it is.
It is.
Yeah.
I just can know it is not a well-oiled machine. Some of it is not a well-oiled machine.
Hey, totally random because we got 2 minutes left here. Speaker Stump Speech, by the way, at 5:07. I'm going to talk about While Rome Burns. That's what was in my mind last night as I was watching the State of the Union. Okay, While Rome Burns, and then we're going to talk to Karen Fessler, who is an awesome political strategist from the great state of Iowa, and we're all going to be talking a lot about Iowa in the near future as the Iowa caucuses fire up. So, Katie, the other night we were looking for something to watch on TV, and it was really late, and Suzanne was like, "Okay, can we please not watch another hour-long epic battle of the Vikings and the battle of good versus evil? Can we watch something maybe just a little lighter and a little different?"
Yes.
I was like, yes, dear, we can do that. So I tell you what, she got me hooked on a new series. They're half an hour each, and have you heard of this? It's a cast of thousands. It's called Only Murders in This Building.
Only Murders in the Building. Is it with Selena Gomez?
Selena Gomez.
Yes.
And Steve Martin.
Yes, I have heard of it.
And crazy Martin Short.
Yes, Martin Short. Yes.
Who's hilarious.
Is it good?
It's very good. I've only watched one episode, but I was like, with Suzanne, I was like, okay, is this some girly thing or whatever that she just wants to chill out in? And no, it was great. Murder mystery with a dark comedic flair to it.
I love that.
And the characters are over the top. They're really funny.
I heard I've seen great reviews about it. I think season 2 is now out, so I know it's doing well. But I didn't know what initially. I'm like, is this a murder mystery? Is it a comedy?
It's both. So Chris, it's called Only Murders in This Building. It's like a dark comedy murder mystery. It's a sitcom on Netflix, and it features Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez, and they all live in this giant apartment complex in New York City.
Any satanic stuff going on?
Not at all.
Okay.
No,
I'll
just murders.
What?
Just death.
There is just death and destruction.
Death and Satan.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Death and destruction.
And there's a lot of twists and turns in it, and it's very funny. So
We'll have to check it out. Good
check
recommendation.
Check it out. There you go. All right, 4:57 in the p.m., 4 o'clock hour in the can, 5 o'clock hour, as we mentioned, featuring the Speaker Stump Speech, and Karen Fessler, Iowa political strategist. All of that and more is straight ahead here at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to News Talk STL.
What if everything you thought and believed to be true about owning and buying your home turned out to be wrong?
Straightforward, objective advice on the right way to make the most out of every dollar you put into your home.
We're the only country that has one of those. Most other countries, considering like Canada, the UK, they don't have long-term fixed-rate mortgages like that. They're all variable-rate mortgages.
HomeWise with Michael Midget, Sunday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
I studied Spanish in college and never got fluent. But then I tried Babbel.
Want the most effective way to learn another language? In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel's bite-sized lessons will have you learning another language in as little as 3 weeks.
Babbel is all conversation-based, so it gets you speaking quickly about things you actually talk about in the real world.
You'll really see a difference in how you can speak and how conversational you can be in just a few weeks.
Babbel isn't just lessons. You can listen to podcasts, play games, watch videos. You can even take live online classes with a language teacher. There are so many ways to learn with Babbel.
The lessons online and in the app make it easy to learn from pretty much anywhere.
University studies have shown that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a semester of college Spanish. If you want to learn a new language, there's no better way than Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Tuesday, March 14th, News Talk STL presents Defending America, telling stories we shouldn't tell, featuring the Heritage Foundation's Dakota Wood and former U.S. Senator Jim Talent. March 14th at View 17. Tickets are free, but you must reserve your seat at newstalkstl.com or on the News Talk STL app. Defending America, telling stories we shouldn't tell. Tuesday, March 14th.
Sponsored by the Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise at Lindenwood University.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
From townhall.com, I'm Keith Peters. The death toll from Monday's devastating earthquake in Turkey is closing in on 12,000. While teams from more than 24 countries have local emergency personnel on the ground, the scale and scope of destruction from Monday's 7.8 magnitude quake and its powerful aftershocks was so immense that many people were still awaiting help.
Rescue efforts are being hindered by bitterly cold weather and a shortage of trucks and fuel. Town Hall News is joining forces with international nonprofit relief agency Food for the Poor to rush emergency relief, food, and water to victims of the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. More information is available on the website srnnews.com. Tasha Stevens reporting.
There are strong indications that Russian President Vladimir Putin decided to supply the missile that downed flight MH17 in 2014.
The investigators played telephone conversations which had taken place between Russian officials and the separatists. In them, the officials said the decision to provide military support rested with the president, and a ruling was postponed for a week as they awaited the approval of an individual identified as being at a summit in France. At that time, President Putin was at the D-Day commemorations in France. Investigators said there was concrete information that the separatist request was presented to the president and that this request was granted. It is not known whether the request explicitly mentions a Buk surface-to-air missile system.
BBC correspondent Anna Holligan reporting. The extraordinary scene of U.S. fighter jets getting ready to strike the Chinese balloon had many people along the Carolina coast straining their necks and pointing their smartphones to the sky to capture the moment of impact. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 207 points today. More on these stories at townhall.com.
And it's Prager here. Sue and I mean it. Dogs are part of our family. We love Otto and Snoopy so much. There's nothing quite like their loyal companionship. So we provide them with Rough Greens. In fact, I just talked to my wife about it because we want them to be healthy and we want them to be with us as long as possible. That's true. I know Sebastian Gorka feels the same way.
The Pragers and I couldn't agree more. Our pups, Killian and Leia, rely on us to provide what's best for them. And naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black has packed Rough Greens full of vitamins, minerals, digestive enzymes, omega oils, and more that supplement their food in a way that has shown us great results. Trying out Rough Greens is an easy yes, recommended by me, Dr. G.
Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm so proud that the Pragers and Sebastian Gorka have entrusted their dog's health to Rough Greens. I'm so confident that Rough Greens can help your dog, I'm offering you a free Jumpstart trial bag. Just cover the shipping. Yes, your dog's food is dead food, but you can bring it back to life with Rough Greens. Go to ruffgreens.com.
Here's the Wall Street Business Report.
Wall Street gave back some
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The rain continues throughout the night tonight, ending before the Thursday morning drive, though. A half an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall with an isolated storm. Better chance to the south and southeast. Low down to 43, but during the morning drive, the winds really start kicking. Some gusts in the 40 to 45 mile per hour range. But again, dry for the rest of the morning and afternoon, and turning partly cloudy late in the day with a high of 48. Friday, 39 for a colder day. Slight chance for a little rain-snow mix. Better chance south of St. Louis. That's the latest First Alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Is your portfolio prepared for the biggest risks facing investors today? Hi, it's Tim Jones. High inflation and a rapidly changing economy may impact your investments. If you haven't made appropriate changes, your portfolio may not be positioned to address some of the biggest risks in today's economy. That means it's time to request your free portfolio review from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on News Talk STL 101.9. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create a portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free portfolio review, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas & Company, Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Free speech is alive and well in America.
Sometimes it's hard to know what's real and what isn't.
Right here.
The country is heading in the wrong direction under this president.
We're suffering shortages. America's running out of everything.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now. They just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
So I've come to fulfill my constitutional obligation to report in the State of the Union. And here's my report. Because the soul of this nation is strong, because the backbone of this nation is strong, because the people of this nation are strong, the State of the Union is strong.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Truer words ne'er spoken. Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show here at News Talk STL 101.9, 94.1, News Talk STL 5:06 in the PM. Big shout out and thank you to Chris Arps who got us French fries.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
little snack.
Yeah, I was very, very hungry and needed to.
There's nothing like a potato.
It's hard to beat a potato.
You can't beat a potato.
And I bought an extra one for you, Katie, and you won't indulge.
I'm gonna have maybe one or two.
We appreciate it,
one or
Chris,
two.
very much. Folks, I stare at this camera for 2.5 hours every day, and I always forget about it, which is maybe not a good thing. While I pick my ears or my nose or something. Welcome to the show. Hello. Chris and Katie and I are in, what are we on, 4K HD, right?
We are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
4K HD, showing all of our beautiful skin. Rumble.com, Facebook.com, YouTube. Now, when you go to YouTube, you type in Tim Jones and Chris Arps, and the show itself pops up. You go to all the other platforms, just punch in News Talk STL, and you get the station feed. It's a long story. We've told you all that before. The point is, you can watch us, you can listen to us, you can carry us in your pocket, and you can take us anywhere you want to go. A lot of people are chattering, Katie, I think, on the you guys on your show today, you had a ton.
Tons.
Yeah.
Well, we had a slight disadvantage at the beginning
Oh,
of the
that's
show
right.
because Facebook was down. Facebook was not working. But we're up and running on Facebook right now if that is your platform of choice. As Tim just said, you can also chime in on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. We check all of the comments. We post the comments up on our live stream. Please engage with us or call us, 314-912-1019.
Was Facebook too busy talking to the FBI?
Yes, it was. This is like, we are not working. We're using all your data, mining all your data.
The Hunter Biden laptop is not real.
Giving it to FBI.
Big hearings today up on Capitol Hill on that. I found this headline. I forgot to mention this. We ran out of time with Larry Behrens in our 4 o'clock hour. By the way, last thing, we have podcasts. So if you missed any of our segments today, tomorrow, or the next day, just download our podcast wherever you get podcasts for all of our programs. You can listen to us anytime you want. There was a headline today, which I thought was really hilarious. I thought if it wasn't on Business Insider, I would have thought it was from The Onion or the Babylon Bee. BP, which is British Petroleum, BP announced it's going to drill for more oil.
Really?
So an oil company, Katie and Chris, is going to drill for more oil. Well, the point of that is, remember over the last few months, the ESG woke warriors were going after oil and gas companies saying they needed to develop a new business model. So an oil and gas company is supposed to stop drilling for oil and gas. And BP pushed back on that. Good for them. And said, no. We're actually going to double down and we're going to drill for more oil and gas, not less. Guess what happened? Their stock has skyrocketed this week. That's called the free market. That's called capitalism.
I mean, that's what needs to happen. And we've seen over the last few years, these oil and gas companies have been under pressure from these groups to disinvest from oil and to become green energy companies. We've seen activist shareholders that have tried to get seats on the board, to take control of the boards, to make sure that these companies don't spend as much money on oil and gas distribution. I don't know what planet these people that they think they're living on, where they can bring this fantasy world that they want to light in 4 or 5 years or this close. We are nowhere near the technology that we need for any of this stuff to be feasible.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever Biden said that we are going to be moving away from oil in the next 10 years, and he got all of that roaring laugh. I mean, Tony said everyone was laughing. Why? I mean, he's obviously saying that to appease the greenies, but is that something that people are going to be putting up a fight for? I mean, we're seeing it right now as that story you just said, Tim. Are people like, yeah, no, we're here, we're drilling, it's going to exist, it's a natural resource, we need to have it, and end of story?
I think what's going to happen is you're going to see the green movement and some of these Democratic administrations put more and more regulations and things on oil, which is going to make gas very expensive. And when gas becomes normally $5, $6, $7 a gallon, people are going to revolt when they know we got tons of oil underneath our feet. I think that's what will bring the change when gas gets so high and people know that we have the oil reserves where this can come down, and this is just ridiculous.
What Chris pointed out earlier, there's nothing green or earth-friendly about the massive amount of strip mining that goes into creating electric vehicles. What do these lunatic lefties think powers electric vehicles? The thing that powers electric vehicles are rare earth metals, and you have to have electricity. Electricity comes from something. It doesn't come from Ben Franklin's kite and key in the air. It comes from a fossil fuel source. And when you combine that with last year, remember we found that list of the tens of thousands of pounds of iron and ore and steel and nickel and cadmium and lithium and all these things that have to be mined to make one freaking car. There's nothing earth conscious or pleasant about any of it.
Yeah, they've just completely demonized oil. That oil and gas destroys the ozone layer. Oil and gas, if it's carried through pipelines or on trucks or on ships, has the possibility of leaking and damaging the environment in that way. It's just a dirty, nasty thing, according to them, and we just need to get rid of it.
Here's a breaking story. We'll have to. I know nothing about it other than some headline just popped up on my feed here. We'll have to talk to Jim Carafano about this tomorrow. U.S. reportedly blew up Nord Stream pipeline. White House responds. Oh boy, that's a breaking news headline. We'll have to look into later. All righty. You know what? Oh, Chris, before I do the stump speech, I want to remind folks that we've got Karen Fessler coming up. Chris, tell our listeners why they should stick around and make sure they capture this. They listen to this segment with Karen Fessler, the Iowa political strategist.
First and foremost, Karen Fessler is a dear friend of me and Becky. We met her during the 2012 campaign. She is a close friend of Rick Santorum, Senator Santorum. She is a Missouri native, went to Mizzou, but she has moved to Iowa. And she is a GOP Iowa political operative. She worked on a couple of presidential campaigns in Iowa. She really knows the lay of the land of Iowa politics, even on the Democratic side. And with 1 year out before the 2024 elections get started, and a lot of candidates have started to make their way to Iowa, I just want to pick her brain and see what's really going on. And I'm very interested to see what the Iowa Democrats think about their party taking them out of the limelight and putting them way down the list of primary election states, Iowa and caucus states.
Believe it or not, folks, the Iowa caucuses are less than a year away, February 5th of 2024, so the clock has started ticking for all the candidates.
You know, and I was thinking about this, too, coming in. You know, in 2015, Becky and I went up to Des Moines for a candidate event that had about 6 or 7 presidential candidates. Donald Trump was one of them. And there was a lot of energy. People were really excited about potential presidential election. It's weird we're a year out now, and there's no big candidate forum where 7 or 8 different candidates are up in Iowa, and people are talking about them. It's actually kind of quiet, and it's kind of unusual.
Yeah,
compared to 2015-16 was the exact opposite of this.
It'd be interesting to see if it picks up. Zach on our chat box on our Facebook page reminded me that the Only Murders in the Building show is on Hulu.
Yes.
It's a Hulu show, not Netflix. Sorry about that. Yeah, Zach, thank you. Thank you very much. We did see your comment, Zach. Thanks for listening to us today, Zach, and for being on the chat box along with Scotty and Denise and Charles and Mark. And everyone's fighting with our good friend Liberal Larry, so that's good.
Oh, Larry's
that's
on.
Good. They're all tangling with. Hi,
Larry.
Everybody, take care of Larry because I got to deliver a stump speech. But you know what? I would love for Larry to listen to this because I'm going to talk about a bunch of facts, Larry, that prove the State of the Union is not strong.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So that's another reason we need communism.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
So the State of the Union is not strong because of the government. Now, I believe the people of the Union are very strong. And the only reason that we have rebounded so magnificently from the Wuhan coronavirus is because of the people, not because of the government, and definitely not because of Joe Biden. As the analogy we talked about when Chris and I were speaking to Larry Barron's of Power of the Future, that Larry thought was so appropriate. It's like Joe Biden set fire to an entire neighborhood and then put out the fire in your neighbor's yard and said, look, I'm making things better. Aren't you happy? Same analogy goes for gas prices, inflation, fuel prices, food prices, the basic necessities of life. Joe Biden and D.C. Democrats are trying to destroy the middle class. You know why? Because in an authoritarian regime, which is what they're trying to create, they're literally trying to create the new socialist empire on earth. You can't have a middle class. You have the powerful and the powerless. You have the haves and the have-nots. I don't think that the Democrats in Washington, D.C., and the liberals in Hollywood, well, the lefties in Hollywood, realize that when they created the Hunger Games and celebrated Jennifer Lawrence, that they were making a movie about themselves. Folks, go back and watch any of the Hunger Games movies. You are watching the reincarnation of Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and Chuck Schumer's government in the United States of America. The haves, the have-nots, the elitists in the capital city of Pan Am, and then everybody else all across the fruited plain being absolute serfs to that one-party government. All right, how about some actual facts to prove that the State of the Union, because of Joe Biden's governmental policies, is not strong? And Larry, every single one of these facts has been source-checked, and you can look it up yourself. Nearly 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. I don't think that's a very strong economy or a very strong union. How about ABC Washington Post? That's probably a good resource for a lot of the liberals in our audience. A recent ABC Washington Post poll found that 41% of Americans say they are not as well off since Biden became president. Why is that an important stat? That's the highest that level of dissatisfaction has been since the ABC Washington Post poll began 37 years ago. So Joe Biden reaches another historic milestone. He has Americans more dissatisfied than ever before in our nation's history since that poll began. I would say that's not a very strong union. How about CBS and YouGov? A CBS YouGov poll shows 62% of Americans expect the economy to decline this year. Again, you can say whatever you want about Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, which basically increased inflation. You can say that what you're doing is making things better, but those are just words. They mean absolutely nothing. They're delusional when the American people are telling you exactly what's going on out in flyover country and the heartland in between the Hudson and L.A., and what the reality is. How about large companies and small companies alike? Companies as large as Boeing and as small as Zoom are laying people off. Boeing just announced 2,000 white-collar job cuts this year. Zoom announced it will lay off 15% of its workforce. Is that the sign of a strong economy or a strong union? Joe Biden failed to support American manufacturing. The Wall Street Journal reports the U.S. trade deficit for 2022 rose over 12% to, get this, $950 billion, the widest gap on record. Another historic first for Joe Biden that does not lead to a strong union or a strong economy. Inflation, it's still a problem. It's still at a historic 6.5%. When Donald Trump left office, inflation was under 2%. Unemployment, if you exclude the pandemic year, barely even a year, if you look at Trump's first 3+ years in office, he had the best economy. He had the best inflation numbers. He had the best unemployment statistics. So anyway, back to where we are in the present. Wages have only increased 4.6%. So I'm no math major or math genius, but 6.5% inflation, I think that's higher than the 4.5% wage increase, which is why Americans are strapped and living paycheck to paycheck. Now, that 6.5% inflation number, that does not tell the whole tale. When you look at the stuff that Americans have to buy every day or spend money on every day, I'm talking food, I'm talking fuel, gas, I'm talking home heating oil, I'm talking rent so they can have a roof over their heads. Did you know, folks, that those core inflationary numbers for necessities, they are still at 10.5%. Let's remind everyone, under Trump, they were under 2%. I don't think 10.5% inflation for the basic necessities of life shows a strong economy or a strong union. A whopping 71% of Americans, according to NBC, another favorite resource of the lunatic left, 71% of Americans think the country is on the wrong track. That's after 2+ years of Joe Biden. After 2 years of Joe Biden, over half of his first term, if anybody was satisfied with him, don't you think that'd be showing up in the polling right now? The opposite's true. 71% of Americans say the country's on the wrong track. Blame dear leader for that. Finally, the opioid. actually, not quite finally. Yeah, the opioid epidemic. That was one of the points where I was ready to throw something through the TV last night. Joe Biden started telling us about how bad the fentanyl crisis was and the opioid crisis was, how more Americans were dying on his watch because of the opioid and fentanyl crisis. And then he never said a word about where it was coming from. Some of the Republicans in the audience did. They pointed out, it's your fault. It's coming from communist China. And finally, Joe Biden has failed to secure the border. When you don't have a secure border, you don't have a secure country. Everyone other than Joe Biden, even many Democratic congressmen in Texas, admit the border is not secure, and it's all the fault of blundering, fumbling, mumbling Joe Biden. The State of the Union is not strong. The economy is not good. But thank goodness for divided government, because I do truly believe ultimately in the perseverance of the American people, and we'll get this big old train back on its tracks. And that's the stump speech for today. Chris, there's reality, and then there was the State of the Union last night. Whoop.
And, with a president who's suffering decline as he is and has a tendency to say whoppers, it's hard to tell which is which most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Very good indeed. All right, Chris, as we mentioned, we got Karen Fessler coming up next. We'll get right to her as soon as we come back. Iowa political strategist extraordinaire. She'll talk to us about the folks who have made motions towards announcing for president and who might be coming down the pike. Next, here at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
Follow Tim Jones on Twitter at Speaker Tim Jones. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The rain continues throughout the night tonight, ending before the Thursday morning drive, though. A half an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall with an isolated storm. Better chance to the south and southeast. Low down to 43, but during the morning drive, the winds really start kicking. Some gusts in the 40 to 45 mile per hour range. But again, dry for the rest of the morning and afternoon, and turning partly cloudy late in the day with a high of 48. Friday, 39 for a colder day. Slight chance for a little rain-snow mix. Better chance south of St. Louis. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Hey, it's Vic, and I'm here with Kathy Connor at Connor Roofing. Kathy, what makes Connor Roofing different?
Hey, Vic. I'm glad that you asked. I think that what really sets Connor Roofing apart is our relationship with our customers. It's very important to us to develop that trust with the homeowner. This is what has allowed us to serve our friends and our neighbors in the St. Louis area for 30 years. Whether we are doing a roof or a gutter repair or even a full replacement, you can count on Connor for quality service and workmanship.
Thanks, Kathy. To find out more, visit them at connorroofing.com. That's CONNER roofing.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Chris Dorr from the American Firearms Association. Chris, Democrats notoriously do not want to answer the question, what is an assault weapon?
The AR-15 that they want to ban. When you hear assault weapons ban being used by the radical left, just think firearms ban. They want to get rid of all of them. They use terms that they're not, that they don't bother to define along the way just to try to score points.
Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on News Talk STL.
Stories of New Americans.
Hi, this is Ron Clutho. Join me this weekend for Stories of New Americans, where you'll hear fascinating and inspirational personal stories of people from all over the globe who now call St. Louis home. We'll take a look at the U.S. through newcomers' eyes and get insight into world history and culture, and maybe just learn a little bit more about ourselves.
Stories of New Americans with Ron Clutho. Saturday nights at 10 on News Talk STL.
This is News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton, and we're proud to be the official winter weather source for News Talk STL. The First Alert Weather Team is working hard to keep you ahead of the big weather changes and help you plan your day. So stay connected this winter with Channel 4 and News Talk STL.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Busted.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
This here's a jam for all the fellas. Try to do what those ladies tell us. Get shot down because you're overzealous. Play hard to get females, get jealous. Okay, smarty, go to a party. Girls are scantily clad and showing body. A chick
Somebody at the White House has been smoking the devil's lettuce.
End of quote. Repeat the line.
How are you feeling about the job these days that you're doing and people's perception of you on the ticket?
Well, let me first of all say, as the president has said, he intends to run, and if he does, I'll be running with him.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
Oops.
I always feel like she's getting ready to laugh, like she's trying to suppress a laugh.
She did. She
did laugh after that?
She said that, she's like, she had that big smile, and she was like, she had to laugh. Her her laugh, but she did do that after this.
One word. Edibles.
Edibles. Smoking the green.
Let's see if our next guest expects to see Joe and Kamala anytime soon. Karen Fessler, Iowa political strategist extraordinaire, once again joining us on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show here at News Talk STL. Karen, great to have you back with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, how are you, Mr. Speaker? Thank you. Good to be here.
We're very glad to have you. So, Karen, could you, I don't know that Chris or Katie and I have talked about this recently. Did the Democrats make changes in their primary calendar? Is that a done deal? Are they skipping the Iowa caucuses next year and going straight to South Carolina?
Well, they're going to try, but the problem that the Democrats are going to run into, both in Iowa and New Hampshire, is our state laws. Also, in both states, Iowa and New Hampshire, state law determines when and how the caucuses will be. So, in both states, it's in code. So, I don't know how they think they're going to get around that.
Karen, first of all, I want to wish you a happy belated birthday. And, back in 2015, I was up in Iowa, and Steve King, former Representative Steve King, threw a candidate forum that Donald Trump and 8 or 9 other candidates probably attended. All of the media was there. It was a big hoopla. That was January of 2015, 1 year before 2016. We're seeing January, February of 2023, nothing like that in Iowa.
No.
What's going on?
Well, I think that, it's just sort of waiting to see who's going to get into this thing. Nikki Haley's apparently making an announcement next week, and I think it's going to be that she's going to try to run for president, and good luck to her on that. But, I think that there just aren't as many people that have announced and have said that they were going to be looking to run. I mean, you remember that event. That was an all-day event there in Des Moines. And you and Becky came up, and it was great to have you up here, and we had a great time. So anyway, but, there aren't just – Donald Trump is the only official candidate that we have, and he's not really official. He's just said he's going to run. So.
And I remember sending out a picture that day saying, Donald Trump, why is he here? He knows he's not running for president. This is just some big publicity stunt. Come on, Donald. And, I had egg on my face, still trying to get it off.
I remember. So, but anyway, so we'll just have to see what happens. But no, there have been a lot of people up here who have talked about the fact that, wow, we really haven't had any of these candidate forums or, cattle calls, as we call them sometimes. And so maybe, the other thing is, too, is the Iowa State Fair will go on this summer, and that will be a huge draw for anyone who's thinking that they may want to run for president.
Karen, we heard, and I believe we talked about this last week on our show, the fact that U.S. Senator Tim Scott, who has been somewhat on the national stage over the last year or so, he delivered a rebuttal to a State of the Union, I think a year or two ago. He has been front and center on some of the biggest debates of our times regarding policing and law and order, education reform, and he's just such a happy warrior. We understand he's making a trip to Iowa, right, soon.
He will be at the Polk County Republican Lincoln Dinner, which is the Polk County is Des Moines, and he's going to be there. I think it's the 23rd that he'll be there for that. And that's the media center for the state, and So, that's always a good place to go. And I talked to their chair last week, and she's very excited about having Senator Scott there.
Karen, in 2016, Donald Trump barely lost to Ted Cruz in the Iowa caucus. I'm wondering in 2023 and 2024, how strong is Donald Trump in Iowa right now? Is he the man to beat?
Oh, I think Iowans are keeping an open mind on things. I've seen a lot of polling, and most of his polling is in the high 40s, low 50s, I think, from what I've seen. And I think that that's going to probably be where he stays. There's a lot of open-mindedness about who's going to be here and who's going to run. I hear an awful lot about Governor DeSantis here. And until he decides what move he's going to make. But, I think, if Donald Trump decides to run, he is probably the prohibitive favorite at this time. But I think people will be looking around, too, to see who else there's going to be.
Speaking to Karen Fessler, an Iowa political strategist with deep roots here in the Show Me State, great friend of the show. Karen, tell us a little bit about your governor, Kim Reynolds. She's been making a lot of national headlines with her aggressive moves with your state legislature on expanding educational reform and parental choice when it comes to schooling, on cutting taxes. I mean, she's really been one of the, when you talk about all the reform, the true conservative reform-minded governors, she always gets mentioned in the same sentence.
Well, our Governor, Kim Reynolds, is a tremendous person, and she has done an outstanding job here in Iowa. She has a supermajority now in the legislature, so she pretty much can get whatever her agenda is. And she tried to get that school funding bill passed last year, and essentially what that is if you want to pull your children out of public school and send them to a private school or homeschool them, then they're going to pull that money away from that public school and give it to you for your child to go. And I think it's $7,800 per child. And she missed that by just a few votes last year. And she went out and she worked real hard and got people elected that she knew were going to support that. And that bill was passed the first week of the legislature, and she got it signed into law. Again, with the tax cuts, she's trying very hard to get Iowa income tax to 0%. They're working on something right now to get it down to 3%. So, yeah, Kim is an outstanding governor. She's a tremendous person. I'm, very proud of her. And, we were talking this morning with a friend, maybe a Huckabee Reynolds ticket in 2024.
Whoa.
Oh, okay. Making news there, Karen.
You heard it here
All
first.
right.
Couple lady leaders there. And, our legislature needs to take note of what you're all doing up in Iowa. I feel like we're a little behind.
Well, you guys had a supermajority for a long time. I don't know if you still do or not.
We do. We need to do more with it. Yeah.
They are moving and shaking in Des Moines, that's for sure.
Karen, one of the things that people look at when a person is kind of rumored to be running for president is seeing if they are making any big-time political hires in the early primary states. Do you see any of these candidates hiring some of the top political Iowa talent for political campaigns right now?
Well, I know that Pompeo has some people here on board. I have heard of some people who are coming on with Governor Pence, or Vice President Pence, I'm sorry. I have heard that Governor DeSantis has been talking to some people. I don't believe that he's hired anyone, but I've heard that he is talking to some of the strategists up here. So, we'll see how that all falls out.
So Pompeo and who else have hired staff?
Pompeo has hired people. They've been in touch with me. They want to bring him here to Johnson County later this spring. And his wife actually has roots here in Coralville, where I live. And she had family here and visited, and so she has connections in the community.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Who are you working for? Who are you going to go to work for?
Not yet. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, I know there's talk going on. Pompeo has hired. I had heard that Pence had some people on board, but I don't know that for sure.
Karen, let's play this game a little bit. Let's talk about the Democrats, right? It's always a little fun. So, Karen, based on, and of course, we're just totally speculating here, right, as Republicans on the outside looking in. But, Karen, based on everything you've seen over the last 2 years, especially the last few months, especially last night and the last few weeks, with everything that's befalling the Biden administration, some of the high-profile people who are leaving the administration, the scandals and the document debacle, the balloon gate, and all of that. And, let's be honest, Joe Biden's age and people wonder about his constitution. Karen, what do you think? Do you think he's going to go through with an announcement in the next few weeks? And is the Democratic Party just going to have to grin and bear it and deal with it?
I think they are. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think they're going to have to realize that this is who they're stuck with. Short of him having a major health issue, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I hope with all my heart, and I pray every day for his good health. Mm-hmm. But short of that, I don't know how they're going to move Biden out of that. Mm-hmm. And I think when you go back to this whole caucus thing, by giving in to Congressman Clyburn to allow South Carolina to be first in the caucus or in the presidential nominating process, I think that practically guarantees that, Biden is going to be in the mix. And, who wants to take on a sitting president? Mm-hmm. Eugene McCarthy did it in 1968, and he was able to get Lyndon Johnson to step down. But I don't know that Biden will do that.
Karen, I heard a very interesting theory the other day on why the Democrats may be changing the calendar, and not so much for the reasons that they're giving, that Iowa and New Hampshire are too white, that part of the reason that they want to change the calendar is to make it easier for Joe Biden because he doesn't have the stamina to do campaigning in Iowa and in New Hampshire where it's very retail and you have to do, a lot of different events. That if it's Georgia and South Carolina and those states, they can buy a lot of TV ads and direct mail and campaign in that way. What do you think about that?
I think that's as good a theory as anything. Biden didn't really come to Iowa that much 4 years ago. Yeah. He was here a few times, but he didn't spend a whole lot of time here. And, of course, that showed up in the caucus results, too. Mm-hmm. But I think that theory is probably as good as anything. I think very true. I mean, remember the national campaign, Biden campaigned from his basement. So.
He sure did. Karen, thanks so much for all the time this afternoon. Karen, if any of our listeners are interested in learning more about Iowa and what's going on up there with your governor or as we approach the caucuses, are you on any social media or anything, or do you avoid such hellish things on earth?
I do a little bit of social media, but it's mostly posting what I had for lunch and somebody's new puppy. So anyway, social media could just get you in trouble. If they want to get online and check out the Des Moines Register, I know it's a very liberal paper, but there is some good stuff on there for political information. Also, the Iowa Standard is a blog that's up here, and he does a pretty good job of covering what's going on in Des Moines. So, but keep an eye on our governor. I don't know if she's going to make a move or not, but I think she's very ready to do something. So.
Excellent. Karen, thank you, my friend, as always, for being on the show and giving us your insight about Iowa politics. Love you, and have a great evening.
Okay, love you too, Chris. Do my best to back you.
I will.
Take care. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Karen. Great to talk to you. All right, Karen Fessler. I bet we'll talk to Karen, Chris, several more times as we head towards February 2024. Can you believe that's less than a year away now?
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
And she really has her finger on the pulse when it comes to Iowa politics. And as I said when I was questioning her, Tim, 2015, I was up in Iowa one weekend. There were 7, 8, 9 candidates. All the major TV was there. It was a big hoopla. This same time, 2023, nothing. Trump's announced. Nikki Haley may announce. And that's it. It's an amazing contrast.
It has been. I mean, with King Kong Trump in the room right now, it has been very quiet, but for him. It's really amazing. We'll see what develops.
King
over the
Kong
next...
Trump. We may see some meme or some video now coming out with that. Maybe they're listening.
King Kong Trump. Yeah, I'm going to trademark that right now. All right, when we come back, we're happy to speak with all y'all. 314-912-1019, 314-912-1019. We'll also check our chat boxes on Rumble, Facebook, and the YouTube channel. Join us if you'd like in any of those means or others. Chris, Katie, and I will be back right after this 1019-94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to News Talk STL. Talk lines are open now at 314-912-1019. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The rain continues throughout the night tonight, ending before the Thursday morning drive, though. A half an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall with an isolated storm. Better chance to the south and southeast. Low down to 43, but during the morning drive, the winds really start kicking. Some gusts in the 40 to 45 mile per hour range. But again, dry for the rest of the morning and afternoon, and turning partly cloudy late in the day with a high of 48. Friday, 39 for a colder day. Slight chance for a little rain-snow mix. Better chance south of St. Louis. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Our country is being attacked.
Live and local.
The fact that there are lines. Not received any updates on whether or not there was an uptick in the sale of Doritos.
This is News Talk STL.
Hey, Columbo here for our family dentist, Dr. Matt Boscia at New Creation Dental Care, a one-stop solution for all your family's dental needs, including braces. Dr. Boscia uses the My Forever Smile Braces system, which straightens teeth many times in less than a year for half the price of traditional braces. Traditional braces or Invisalign can cost $6,000 or more, but Dr. Boscia only charges $29.98 for My Forever Smile, and incentives and insurance can lower the price even more, plus New Creation offers in-office financing. Learn more at newcreationdentalcare.com.
Have you been floored? Not until you've gone to Michael's Flooring Outlet. They've been a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years. You want variety? Michael's has carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, and many other options. Save money and get quality at Michael's. Plus, your installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michael's. You can shop in store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home. Check out everything that Michael's has to offer at igotfloored.com.
Hey, it's Vic. Everyone here at News Talk STL is incredibly grateful for the growth in our business during the first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Southern Armory, Rhino Shield, Steph's Pizza, and the Walner team that have become one of our many advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. We have a wide variety of affordable advertising options. And thanks for listening to News Talk STL. Welcome home.
American culture is at a crossroads. I'm Kira Davis, and in my new book, Drawing Lines, Why Conservatives Must Begin to Battle Fiercely in the Arena of Ideas, I challenge conservative Americans to stop retreating from the culture. I help you think critically through the pressing cultural issues of our day and offer practical advice and solutions. It's time for conservatives to make themselves uncomfortable and get engaged. Get inspired, get moving, and get winning. Pick up a copy of my book, Drawing Lines, available on Amazon, at faithfultext.com, or wherever books are sold.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Thursday at 10:25, we have Porcelli's Deli, and this week we're going to talk about Bonnie Raitt, and by the time it's done, I am going to be pissed, so don't miss it.
Weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. We give you news, analysis, opinion, and more. Only on News Talk STL.
Stop the hammering. Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer? Where is it?
Listen to us. I'm sure you'll be amazed. Big fun to be had by everyone. It's up to you. Surely can be done.
Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one.
Go, 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 Bobs! Go, 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 Bobs!
I still don't get it.
Yeah.
I still don't understand what he's talking about.
Well, as I said, I think Xi Jinping, when he made that comment to the late Japanese prime minister, said that, if he wasn't Chinese and he was born in America, he'd be Republican or Democrat. And somehow Joe Biden, in that context of saying that, and he wouldn't want to trade with him. Yeah, it's very odd. It doesn't make much sense. I'm really stretching my brain to try to figure that out, and it scares me that I may have deciphered it, to be honest with you. And that worries me.
You were doing some mental twister right there.
Because it kind of made sense to me when he said it, and I understood it, and I was like, yeah.
But why the yelling?
And I started, maybe
Why?
I need
Yeah.
a
Why?
fever.
Why was he yelling
was
about
the yelling
Yeah.
happening? I don't.
Because that makes you listen 2 times harder.
And I thought, I
Not.
thought that was the method of his whispering. I
Well-
thought the method of the whispering was for us to really listen.
Yeah,
gotta
it's
listen.
both.
This is how I do it with the little
But
girls,
then the
too.
yelling happened, and I'm like, well.
I think it depends on the situation. Sometimes to get people's attention, it calls for a whisper. And sometimes you just have to yell at them when you're desperate.
How about when he said...
When somebody really isn't paying attention to you,
here.
you yell.
How about when he was trying to make the argument that China is less powerful today than it was 2
What?
years ago? I think everyone was just laughing out loud at that.
After the spy balloon.
Right.
Can you read the room, Mr. President? Read the room. We just had a spy balloon
They just
travel
gave
for
us
5 days.
They might as well have floated a giant middle finger across the country.
And practically, you know what? Somebody should do, Todd Showalter should do a cartoon of that.
Yes,
Of
Todd.
a, of a giant just middle finger flipping the bird.
Yes.
Just, lazily streaming across the United States. It's in the jet stream now, so it's
a
really
weather balloon.
cruising.
Did you see what Marjorie Taylor Greene brought into the chamber last night?
I don't think I did.
Guys, she was carrying a giant white balloon when she walked into the chamber.
Yeah, I heard
She
that
did.
some of them were talking about
I saw her
them.
dressing all white, but I
She
didn't realize.
She carried and she dressed like the white balloon.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
She carried a white balloon in and she dressed like the white
Serious
balloon.
question. Should she be taken serious?
I think she could be. So I think what her plan was as a freshman congresswoman, I think she was like, you know what? I'm one of 435. No one's going to pay attention to me, just like any other freshman. So I'm going to come in hot, and I'm gonna like let people know I'm here, and I'm going to be a bit outlandish or a lot outlandish, and I'm going to get attention. And then, if you notice, Chris, then suddenly the next term, she's supporting Speaker McCarthy for Speaker, which people were like, what?
Well, she had leverage. I mean, McCarthy needed every single vote that he could. She represented a certain faction of the party that he needed. And it was as they say in politics, politics sometimes makes strange bedfellows. And it is an amazing turnaround to someone who her first term has no committees to now you are a member of a powerful House committee because you were able to leverage yourself and into the speaker's good graces and gain a little power and a little notoriety.
I'll tell you why I think she should be taken seriously. If she keeps running for Congress and wins and becomes more and more well-known, she's apparently, according to Congressman Eric Burleson, she is a fundraising juggernaut. Here's when she gets taken seriously. When she runs for the U.S. Senate in Georgia someday and wins and goes to the U.S. Senate. Then look out. You know?
Chris, didn't you just describe good politicking? I mean, isn't that like she's
crazy like a fox.
She's
you know?
crazy. I mean, she is not my favorite. I know that Vic really likes her. I know that Ken really likes her. Not my favorite person. But didn't you just describe someone that knows how to work it?
Look, I'm afraid that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a person that can win a congressional district. I'm not sure if she can win statewide in a state with her politics, especially in Georgia, which, I don't think it's as trending as purple as people think it is, but it's not as red as it once was. I would just question, can she win statewide?
Her career is going to be an interesting one to watch, right? To see if someone that flamboyant can rise above a congressional district that obviously believes very much in her. Like she cruised to like a 40. She had a couple challengers and she beat the snot out of them.
When you can win re-election to a House seat and you had no committees assignments for 2 years and you basically did nothing for 2 years and your constituents still re-elect you, speaks volumes.
But I think that is maybe circling back to the first question that we all talked about at the beginning of the show, when we talk about the decorum of the State of the Union and such. I think that's what scares me whenever we see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene successful behind the scenes with the fundraising and the moving different puzzle pieces to get where she needs to be to get the seats on these high committees. But in order to do that, they are these very flamboyant, crazy-ish people that are like, I'm going to throw whatever I can at the wall. I'm going to say whatever I want to say. I'm going to act however I want to act, which kind of perpetuates this reality TV thing that I was talking about.
But there are thousands of people listening to us right now, Katie, will say that one person's crazy is another person's patriot.
That's true. And you know what? That is absolutely. There's a lot of people listening.
That's the one thing, though, that,
Yes.
How do you differentiate that, between...
Totally. It's a good point. There's a lot of people listening that love Marjorie Taylor Greene.
So I looked up this headline that came across earlier about the pipeline, and it's now being widely reported. We're going to have to dig a little deeper into this because we'll have Jim Carafano on tomorrow. So here's the Daily Mail. Did Biden give the order to destroy Putin's Nord Stream pipeline after the Ukraine invasion? Bombshell report claims Navy divers carried out mission to kill Russia's gas stranglehold on Europe, an audacious mission overseen by President Joe Biden, after Joe Biden told us the U.S. had nothing to do with the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline. Wow. That's big news.
That is big news, but I'm wondering how I feel about that. I mean, is that a good thing for the United States to try to cut off potential revenue from Russia? It does hurt the allies, but it makes them more relying on Western sources of energy instead of Russia. So I don't know. I have to analyze that.
Yeah,
so I
it's
think
something
about
to think about.
They got busted.
It's a very
more than anything. That's the story. Busted.
It's a very cavalier attitude about getting ourselves into places maybe we should not. And by the way, folks, this comes from a really good. I've never heard of this guy. Maybe you guys have. You guys ever heard of Seymour Hersh?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this came from him.
Yeah. He's credible.
Report by Pulitzer Prize winner Seymour Hersh details plot in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The White House and the CIA have denied these claims. Wow. How about them apples? That's pretty wild stuff. So we'll definitely.
It makes you think of what our allies. I mean, I hope that our European allies knew that we did this. I hope they're not reading about this and as shocked as we are, because how that could affect the war effort in a sense. Because right now, the one thing that people have been really surprised at just how unified the Western powers have been in supporting Ukraine against Russia. Could this fracture that if the United States is secretly, bombing this pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, this is, Chris. This is going to have a lot of. We're going to have to chew on this overnight.
This could be a foreign policy disaster for them, and could disrupt relations between us and Europe.
And well, thank God Joe Biden's at the helm, because he handles all these foreign policy things so well.
Send Kamala over there.
I think we're screwed. So
send Kamala over there. Everything will be great.
It'll be fantastic. She'll just laugh her way
She's
through it.
Really just
give
a
her some
peaceful
edibles.
person.
The Air Force or Air Force 2 can stop in Holland first, pick up some supplies, and then.
Why stop there? She can get it from California.
They probably got the good stuff in Holland, though.
They probably do. So remember how we were talking about how we were wondering, like, how in the world people are still, like, not going back to work, and do people really have savings built up following the pandemic? That we keep hearing that's what's going on, right? Well, here's I found one of the reasons why people are still not completely back in the workforce. U.S. credit card debt jumped nearly 20% last quarter and has hit a record $930 billion.
Oh, my gosh.
So Americans got really used to staying home and getting all that free money in the mailbox every month. And when it started to dry up, they just started hitting the plastic.
Oh, my gosh. That's so sad, especially because, I mean, if you have bad credit, if you don't pay off those credit cards every month, I mean, bad credit is a hard hole to dig yourself out from. That is such a sad thing. And you're right, Tim. people probably did get used to having all those handouts for quite some time. And then whenever it's taken away.
I mean, think about the guy that I mentioned yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a freelance photographer, so his income is not steady. The most he'd ever saved was $4,000. By the end of the pandemic, he had $20,000, most money he'd ever saved in his life. Now he's down to $2,000.
Is it any wonder why there were so many jobs created last month? People are like, oh crap, I've ran out of my stimulus funds and my credit cards are maxed out. I guess it's time to go back to Shake Shack. You know,
so insane.
You know, I mean,
yep. And but remember, you have to sign that non-compete before you
What was
go to Shake Shack. So
yeah, that was crazy.
Don't forget about
for
that.
Burger King.
Whoever wrote that into the speech should be fired. Yeah.
Dumb.
There's no such thing in the fast food industry, I can tell you. All right, 5:57, which means it's time for us to turn things over to the Larry Connors USA Daily Report. We'll all be back tomorrow for a fantastic Thursday show.
Newsmax in the morning, 5:36 and 7.
There you go. There you have it. And tomorrow, I know, Katie, we're going to speak to Jim Carafano.
We are.
And a whole host of other folks. So you're going to tune in 3:30 out of the gates. But listen to News Talk STL all day long here at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
You live in St. Charles County? Then you can get Mid-Rivers News Magazine delivered free to your home just by asking for it. Mid-Rivers News Magazine is the only print source for the political, school, business, and sports news happening in your hometown. Simply visit midriversnewsmagazine.com/subscribe to get a copy delivered to your mailbox. Or you can pick up a free copy at all area Deerbergs and Schnuck stores. Mid-Rivers News Magazine. Anybody who wants it gets it. Anybody who gets it wants it. Subscribe for free today.
This is Julia Gordon-Bramer, your host of